I want to preface tonight. I've intentionally wrote a command. Mods, please note this for the future if it does get a little crazy. Exclamation point disclaimer. We are not certified professionals in the specific field of politics. However, we do like to engage in intellectual discussions among each other to seek for better solutions to help each other in finding solutions to help make a better world at the end of the day. Tonight's episode, we're going to talk about a few primary things, I should say. First, we're going to meet our guest, nima74, aka Frank Genovese. Great guy, passionate member of our community, and also a good friend of ours in the world of just nonprofits in general, which does run one, Operation Protect Our Protectors. We'll get a chance to talk to him, what that's about, what it is that he does there, and get the chance to really just dive into it. And yeah, talking to Jeremy still, by the way. Cool, I think. So, all right. I'm just about ready. I'm just adjusting my watch band. My watch was a little tight. So we're going to get into this here. Before we get too crazy, this should probably plan to be about an hour tonight. Without further ado, I'll go ahead and undeafen. Let's see if we can talk to them.
Yeah, that was 9 months ago, actually.
No.
What's up, guys?
Hello, Jordan. How are
How's
you?
it going? Again, sorry you can't really see my face tonight here, but I guess we'll find that out in the future. One thing that I don't like about Windows and computers in general is you can't run a webcam in 2 different locations. You can apparently capture a device in 4 different locations, but whatever. This isn't what tonight's chat's about. Let me move to... There it is. All right. There we are. There's me. There's you guys here. Pretty simplistic graphic. But we'll make it work here. So
I am here. Frank is there. Jordan is there.
So first of all, welcome Dylan. Welcome Frank. Dylan, I'm sure, will be a regular co-host alongside with me on most of these episodes here. Last week was just fun to kind of have a good one-on-one interview with Amanda Waldron. Our second episode, we go in and have a couple of things on our mind today. And a lot of it's going to be constituted around having a conversation. But before we start talking about why we think America's in a very weird position that it is today, I want to get a chance to meet our special guest today, who I consider to be a very close friend of mine at this point. Frank, welcome to LUFC Chats, dude.
I'm really glad to be here, Jordan. Thank you for having me on. And thank you to all, thank you for having me as well, Dylan. And thank you to all you in chat for tuning in. I'm probably a familiar face, but I think it's been a long time since the three of us, especially on an avenue like this, have had just an extensive chat about, well, I guess what the hell's going on.
Yeah, no kidding. So I want to start. I'm distracted because I just saw Wheatley type cheer Frank,
Yeah,
and he's a handsome
there's
man. He's not wrong, but anyway. So I want to start first of all for those of you that are either new to our community or that watch us down the line and are curious to know more about you. Feel free to kind of take this opportunity to kind of just introduce yourself, who you are, your affiliation with Operation Protect Our Protectors, maybe a little background on Operation Protect Our Protectors, and feel free to kind of take the floor and talk about that.
All right. So, just as a brief overview, I had met Dylan way back in the wee old early 2010s, and we've been friends ever since.
God, that
And,
is
and a very close
amazing.
relationship for a very long time. You know, and we've had a lot of very real conversations, and you know, we've kind of grown up together in a couple ways. I mean, I was a teenager at the time, but you know, now I'm not. Now I'm older. But then he introduced me to Jordan when they were starting the Level Up, basically kind of ramping up the Level Up weekly project, I'd say. And as they transitioned into Level Up for Charity, I started participating in the community more and more. And it's always been a nice community that I'm glad to, you know, try and be a wonderful part of, and try and help build. You know, there's a lot that I can say here, but also one last note: Dylan and I did have a stint of just kind of having these kinds of conversations, and we spun that off on my stream into a show we like to call On the Issues. Currently, kind of. I think it would be a panting mess for a little while, but I think this is our attempt at kind of doing something like that.
Yeah, I'll say it is currently more or less in a weird hiatus state because we're not like we still do like what we're doing right now, but it got to the point where it would almost just be us very sadly echoing modern problems, which we will do plenty here tonight. I swear,
Yeah.
chat. But
This is the time of healing. This is a time of healing because I think everybody's pretty hurt. And I think which we discussed in On the Issues, the first thing that kind of got to a lot of us was electoral politics, and just things on both sides of the coin disappointed us. And then immediately we jump into March, where we had the whispers of the COVID-19 pandemic, and during that time, my brother had come home for a friend's bachelor party, but that ended up getting canceled. So instead, we had to actually end up quarantining for 14 days due to family circumstances. So it was just my brother and I, and he had the smart idea because my brother has a very entrepreneuristic spirit, entrepreneurial, sorry. And he decided, let's make masks. So from there, Operation Protect Our Protectors was born. What is Operation Protect Our Protectors? It is an operation where basically my brother and I, as well as several Western New York community organizers, we got the materials together from several different sources to get a variety of different quality masks out to every professional during this shortage that needed it. EMTs, doctors, essential workers, just anyone you could imagine. We needed to get as many masks out in as short a time as possible. So we supplied to a lot of hospital staff, a lot of local business that were staying open, and basically just during a time when we were often ignored because a lot of the resources were going to New York City. We actually did our best to try and get as many as we could out, and we got about 10,000 out, and we have the other 10,000 made, or the materials for them together, and they're still being made. So basically, it's a total of 20,000 masks we put together. We had a GoFundMe put together, and we fronted the cost and just used the GoFundMe to kind of recoup on that. And what I did, my part in that, first of all, I would help my brother with shipment runs, but more importantly, so what I found was N95 masks specifically were having a shortage. And so I was put in charge of figuring out a comparable material to use for the filtration. So I looked around for about a week, several different sources, and I actually kind of lucked out on a place in Alabama actually that had, because I was looking for HEPA filters and all that stuff, filtration for houses, and they said, hey, don't use these for masks. 2 days later, they come back to me and they say, "Hey, we found something you can use for masks, and we're offering it in bulk right now." So we threw in some money for that. We got it together and we just went to work. We shipped it out everywhere we needed, and I think we definitely, you know, to the best of our ability, to the best of my knowledge, reduce the spread of coronavirus in Niagara and Erie counties. And I believe that, my brother's not here right now, but I believe that he had told me that we were actually getting requests from many places, even outside of our immediate area. So it was pretty fantastic to see not only people organizing as a community, because that's really the most important thing that you can do in times of crisis, which we'll get to, but also just it that's the kind of thing that makes you really feel like you're putting in the effort to solve a problem that's bigger than you could ever imagine. And I do think that due to the efforts with masks nationwide, people getting PPE out, all these amazing efforts by so many communities and so many, even companies, like just so many people, they banded together, and I think they did a lot to stop this spread for hopefully good, but at least a foreseeable future. And we'll have more to speak about on that, but that's COVID for you. I'm still doing work in finalizing getting the last masks out, and I'm very thankful to anyone here who donated. But yeah, I'll just let you guys take it from here.
Yeah, so that which is a good point to kind of tie in where we jumped in, Dylan and I, and the Level Up for Charity crew in of itself here, alongside with Operation Protect Our Protectors and our campaign that was going for American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, alongside with some of the other organizations that were struggling, especially at the beginning of this pandemic. We took the initiative to make those contributions and make it and spin it off in a fun way. Every time that I beat Dylan really badly in Smash Brothers, I had him donate money just as badly as he beat me in Smash Brothers, and then I had to go donate money, just to name some of our incentives, or how many times I had to suffer through Sonic 06 so that we would contribute more money to that. But I want to kind of take this point here, and you were talking about bringing communities together and bringing people involved and helping in these rather astronomically crazy times. I could use that fairly without being hyperbole in these times here.
It does get exhausting.
And I want to kind of tail this, and I want to bring this to both Dylan and to Frank with this question here. So we are in a very crazy time right now. Like, a pandemic a week ago was essentially the major concern and crisis that we were dealing with at the time. This has since escalated now to, of course, the killing of George Floyd and other things among that. So in your vision and in your experiences here that you've seen, not only on the internet, but like in your personal lives, how have you seen people come together as communities and hopefully try to band together to, try to get through this mess, this storm that we're going through right now?
Dylan, would you like to go first?
So exactly what is your question is, there's not a very easy way to answer because, as we discussed earlier, during a phone call, Jordan, stuff is weird right now. Getting by and getting through these modern times is a little bit of it's really different for everybody, and I'm just very grateful that we here at Level Up for Charity have been able to do what we've been able to do, in spite of a lot of the difficulties posed on us by COVID-19, and even more so recently, and probably will in the near future, by a lot of the riots and protests. It's gonna be it's strange times, but I'm very glad that we are able to do what we do, even within these times.
Yeah, and I want to kind of just tack on to that for a second before I give Frank the floor here from what his experience has been. In a lot of today, there's been just a blast of just negativity of everything that's been happening, and it isn't like as if that shouldn't be there. I mean, we are in bad situations right now, and we shouldn't just not focus on those things. But I would say to those that are making impactful differences or designing programs to help others that may be struggling during this time here. Even talking to Amanda last week, for example, and how she's continuing to invest and to be a part of her community and offering as best as she can in counseling sessions as people are stressed out in every situation that's happening right now. And just seeing that people are still trying to help and make differences right now is truly what has been inspiring for me to see here.
Yep, I think that it's very easy to, during times like this, kind of fall apart and get depressed and not know how to deal with it. And I think every one of us, every single one of us, has had at least one of those moments. I know I have had probably many more than that uh, so far this year. There have been a lot of mornings where you've just been so exhausted by the news cycle of the last day, or you know a conversation you had, or information you saw that upset you. It gets to you. It's informational overload. But I think what helped me resist that urge to kind of fall apart is I've been kind of communicating so much more with family, with friends, with my community, and I see that there's massive efforts to combat the spread of misinformation, incomplete stories, rumors. People are really being encouraged to get the bigger picture of everything and have a nuanced conversation as to what's happening, just like we are now. I think that that's important. I think that it's difficult. And I think sometimes, people still may not see eye to eye. I know I've had very difficult conversations with people very close to me, but these are the conversations we need to have if we're willing to grow. And I think a lot of people are. And if enough of us can, hopefully that'll wash out the negativity caused by the people who can't.
This is where I'm going to kind of take this to be a little open ended here, in terms of how we stir this conversation tonight. So you mentioned, Frank, that we had to have some of these difficult conversations to properly progress as us, as friends, as family, as a society right now. So I want to kind of open the floor to either Dylan or Frank. Right now, there's obviously a lot of bad happening here, and I'd love to get your guys' opinions on if there's a subject or a segment that you guys would like to talk about here on LUFC chats, about what's going on, and just really kind of get a chance to butt heads with each other about it. I'm curious if you guys have anything on your plate or on your mind that you want to get together and have the three of us talk about.
Okay.
Oh, gee, just let me look at my short list real quick. All right, one, two, three, four, five. Hold on. Hold on.
The
Five, six.
scroll of Poseidon.
Yeah, I used a lot of ink for the short list, if you couldn't tell. Uh, there are so many things. It really is where to begin at this point.
I think a perfect place to start is the segue. Um, we segued immediately between COVID and the resurgence of Black Lives Matter protests. Now, these two have a very important connection, and I don't know how much you guys have thought about it, but I'm concerned because it's one thing that everybody's packed into groups, because I know enough of them are wearing masks that it might be mitigating it. But there's one thing that's happening that is going to almost guarantee that this spreads out of control again, and I'm not very excited for next week when that could possibly happen. And that is tear gas. Tear gas, it causes severe lung irritation, causes a lot of coughing, and mask or not, like those droplets are getting out there, and in these packed crowds, how can you really control where those go? So, I'm very concerned that the use of tear gas during these protests has probably set us back a great deal regarding COVID 19. That's not something I know for a fact, but I'm not looking forward to the news next week.
Well, I guess you are correct. The right place to start in this is that not on COVID-19, not on the Black Lives Matter protests, but really what happened for those to, like, what made us go from one to the other. Um, this is not a secret. We made it very public due to our some of the charities that we raise money for here at Level Up for Charity. But I live in the great state of Michigan, which is one of the states that was honestly hit very hard by COVID 19. I believe we were third in the nation for most deaths, most infected. Only outside of, I think it was California and New York, I believe. And I don't even know if California beat us. Um, that being said, almost as if nothing happened, we went from being one of the most tightly restricted states in the United States, with our state opening day getting pushed back constantly, the stay-at-home order constantly being moved back and back and back even more and more and more. I went into work one day and got a phone call from the dentist saying, "Hey, we're open now." And I was like, "Wait, what? Why? Why are you guys open?" "Oh, well, didn't you hear? The whole state kind of just opened today." Ahead of schedule, with really no warning, no really big, hurrah. I mean, it was announced on the news the night
It
before.
did all seem so sudden, didn't it?
So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, hold on. I have been living pretty sheltered. I have been living pretty carefully because of the immense threat of COVID-19 in my state. Why now? Just very matter of factly, very randomly, very just immediately, am now able to do all these things I could not do just 12 hours before. I have no, I really don't want to believe this, but I am starting to believe that America and Americans are just kind of sick of COVID-19 to the point of where they're willing to kind of be ignorant of it just to have it gone. Basically, I haven't caught COVID, I will not catch COVID,
So
or
I want to
when I go.
share. I want to share a conversation that I had with a friend of mine recently when, in kind of Frank's what he talked about before, kind of touching base with friends and family during this time here. It's kind of broadened my horizons and trying to keep in communication with a lot of people here. As an extroverted individual that sheltered by himself here in his apartment complex, it definitely can be a pain in the butt. Being isolated for that amount of time here. But I still, this even just 2 days ago, had this conversation with somebody that said, "Man, I'm willing to get COVID. I'm just tired of all of this stuff that's going on right now." And that entirely reflects exactly what Dylan just said a second ago. People are at this point that this has impacted them for a time longer than 2 weeks, that they just don't want to see it anymore, and they're willing to take the risk. They think that COVID is nothing, and it's just a bad flu, and it's not a drastically important and possibly death assuming virus that could potentially impact not only you but those who are at risk. I have two parents that are greater than 60 years old. I have a brother who's diabetic. If I catch COVID and I'm not aware of it, and I end up spreading that over to those people, I don't know how my conscience would feel ever if I knew that I was the impact behind my family members in those situations. That's why I'm thankful that my job has let me telecommute. I'm thankful that my job has let me to just be here the entire time, and for me to essentially have a proper social distancing channel that I can just not be in those dramatic situations, or like in Dylan's case, not be in retail for the entire day, and be at a higher risk than myself or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the scale, we skipped spring. That's just
Yeah.
what we did. We skipped spring. We didn't have a spring this year. I don't know what the spring weather was like. I I don't think I know. I don't remember it. I was out for maybe 15 minutes for like the entirety of it, other than like spring cleaning last week to set up for the pool, which is now open. I might actually go outside. But that being said, so working from that point, we skipped spring, and we've had such a flippancy in all of our news cycles for so many years now, since the Trump presidency began. Um, that really people don't even think to care about things for more than a day at a time, because the news has always been something different every day, lightning quick pace. And now that we have to focus on something for months at a time, now that we have to focus on another thing at the same time, and we just had the like huge stories with the primary, with the impeachment before that, like it starts to occupy so much space in your mind that you just want a second to breathe. I've had that thought a few times this week, even that like sometimes you don't even have the room to breathe with all this stuff flooding your mind, especially when you can't leave the house and distract yourself. I totally get why people would want to just reopen and just get back to normal living so that they can feel like this is just they're out of this mental prison that they've crafted for themselves. But it's to keep our families safe. It like, I think if this doesn't get to be much worse of a problem in the next 2 weeks, as I said, due to all these protests happening, I would say then we should be fine for at least the entire summer. I don't know after that, but then it's just a matter of we have to be prepared next time this happens. That's plain and simple. But for right now, it's just take caution. Even if you're leaving the house, I've got my trusty mask. It's a it's a friggin' Spider-Man mask actually, but it's a goofy little mask I just have that my brother gave me when we started Protect Our Protectors. It was one of the first ones made, and I still wear that as well as a headband so that it goes around a couple buttons instead of my ears so I can wear them for like entire shifts at work. So the least you can do is wear a mask and then just be careful of what you touch. It's simple to just, act kind of just like a germaphobe for a while. We'll be back to normal, but now is not that time.
Well, I'd like to tackle this from the perspective of someone who, because correct me if I'm wrong, but both of you guys worked from home 90 to 100% of the time
Yep.
during this time.
Mm-hmm.
Both of
Yep.
you. So, um, as opposed to you guys as well, who only work one job each, I have had the great fortune, I guess, to have worked 4 different jobs over the last 6 months. Granted, I cut out one of them because I just could not feasibly do it with the other 3 in the conditions that we were. But 40 hours a week, I would be doing a physical retail, like at a retail job, where I had to physically, basically risk my life every day, wear a mask, wear gloves, wash my hands 50 times a day, wash my face 100 times a day, do everything I could to not get COVID as an essential worker. And then some audio editing gigs and some side gigs that made up about another 30 hours of my week, which I basically did as you guys do from my wonderful office, in the corner here. In a minute, it might be out in space. Who knows? But I never had that feeling that you guys had of, kind of that weird isolation, because I did get out of my house almost every day, 5 days of the week for work. And then the other 2 days because I have a mother who is currently undergoing some very unfortunate circumstances of a liver failure. I had to take her to a ton of her appointments. I had to actually go to medical facilities, to hospitals, once a week for getting blood tests done for her and everything. And then the other day of the week would usually be me doing supply runs. So I was out of the house basically every day.
And if I can ask real quick, because I haven't asked you in a few weeks, how's she doing right now?
Well, she's on the list. We just have to, as much as I hate to say it, we just have to wait for the right person to kick the bucket, and she'll have a new liver. It pains me to think that way, but with how much my mom has suffered from this for the last 4 years, and we have had to really go, change our way of living drastically to accommodate. It is going to be a relief when she finally does get that, even if it does, cost someone, unfortunately, their life for it. But she is doing great now. On the list, I have to take her for another appointment next week. But that only beguiles my point here. I was out of the house basically every day over these last 6 months, at least once. It was only very rarely that I would have days off from work, and we had a live-in person that would take my mom to her things, so I could just kind of sit here in my office and do what you guys did for a lot of the time. And it was great. Like, I absolutely love the fact that I could do that and not have to risk my life. But I did get to witness that spring weather. I did get to experience a spring. It was just a spring of nothingness. I couldn't really go visit any friends or family. I took one person I know there. I picked up their medicine for them and brought it to them, and that was about the extent of seeing anyone I did. Can you guys? Sorry, I was
We
just
we can
looking.
take questions at the end of this year,
Yeah.
like we did for last one.
Yeah, it was, save that though, because that actually is a interesting
Yeah.
question. But
Hello,
point being,
Edward, by the way.
yes, hello. But speaking of, on that note, I did get to witness, empty roads. Like there were times when I would be driving to and from all these things, and normally on a day where there'd be, I'd see 5 or 6 cars, on the highway. When I got on the interstate, it would be a lot busier. It was almost like a ghost town for the early months of this, and even up to now, you still really don't see a ton of people out and about joyriding. So it has been a very weird experience, and it's been, I think, almost more depressing than what you described, Frank. Because yeah, you skipped an entire season. You didn't know what the weather was like. I did, and absolutely nothing happened. And that might be more depressing because you it's like if you had to sit in a completely white room with nothing going on versus sitting in a white room and then your consciousness skipping 3 months. You didn't have to experience that sadness and loneliness. And everyone has their own things going on during this time. I'm not denouncing that, but it is just really weirdly depressing witnessing
Being able to sit inside the comfort of your own home for an extended period of time to wait out the storm is a lot different than going out to the world you knew and it looking like an endless void. I think that's kind of the sentiment I'm getting out of that, which
Yeah,
is tough. That's very tough. And then it was straight up eerie, although part of me laughed at the paranoia. But it was straight up eerie for the first time headed into Niagara Falls in months. I drove over there, and in anticipation of the next protests, most of the buildings were just boarded up. I'm like, this world is insane this year. This is
Yep.
easily the most insane year of my life. And I
That's
hope that statement rings true for the rest of my life.
And I think that's exactly what you just mimicked. There's like 4 parks that in kind of the moderately big city that I live in over here in Michigan, and it was it's a different feeling than when the last time you went to a park and it was 20, 30 people, collection of fishing or out at a picnic or a significant relationship. They're hanging out with each other. All of that to experience and just see other people. The last time I went to the park, I saw 2 people. One was on one dock, the other was on the other dock, and they were fishing. They weren't talking. They looked at you eerily, and they didn't what most people felt like were just tensed up because of the whole COVID situation in general. And that's what that experience was like, even going to stores, to retail stores. When I went to go get groceries toward the beginning of this, I specifically remember prior to when they told us that we should start wearing masks, that they were expressing to us, when I was in the store, I still remember like 2 weeks before things got real, I guess I should say, I could, nod my head at somebody and they'd nod their head back and it would just kind of be this cordial respect or something. COVID happened. You go in, everyone's looking away from you. Everyone just starts moving and shying away from you a little bit further. And it's this totally different personification of how you treat a stranger now. And I feel like that's going to be a translation we're going to see I don't think that's going to be a 6 month translation. I think it's going to be there for years, where people are going to be more distant from each other now at this point, from meeting somebody random. The value of a handshake to me is going to be so much different than how it was when pre-COVID had happened. People aren't going to want to touch your hand if you've never met them before or where they've been at. And so that's the feeling you're going to get. It's the feeling you're going to experience. And yeah, it's gonna suck. So
Well,
I want to go ahead, Dylan.
I was just gonna ask, because of we've been wearing masks for how long has COVID been going on right now? 6 months. Just
Stay-at-home orders, I think, essentially have been since the beginning of March. I
This
want to say.
long. This
Yeah.
long.
this long. Good. Okay. Um, just think about how different our culture is from other cultures that may have already had. Like, great example I think of in Japan during any cold season, um, most people wear masks. Like for non-COVID colds, like we have like to us it's this gigantic adjustment to wear masks, gloves, and whatnot. But I have a cousin that is currently in Japan for a teaching gig that they got right before COVID happened. So very weird for them. And no, just everyone over there was wearing masks even before it was announced.
Yeah,
Hey, there's
it's
this,
cultural. They don't go on the subway without one.
and whereas the Japanese, it has hit them as well. Uh, their way of life has not changed nearly as much as ours because we here in America just kind of we're used to our very weird habits of just reckless freedom. And don't get me wrong, I love reckless freedom. Don't get me wrong, I love my reckless freedom, just not during the most deadly and contagious virus in the history of our modern time.
I do think, just as a final thought, then I'd love to give Jordan a little bit more time on it. But I do think in America we have a very "f you, I won't do what you tell me" response to basically ideas of things beyond our control, mathematical laws, scientific patterns that we have to follow in order for us to survive. You'll see a wholesale rejection of that because people want to believe that either our society or our species are infallible and ultimately will prevail through anything no matter what we do. And I think there's a foolish element to that, but I can see kind of how. I mean, we've survived a lot, but at the same time, I think it is hubris. I think people are really things are getting to us. I think we feel very powerful because we've sent people to the moon, because we make cars that can drive themselves. We make robots that can make robots that can make robots. Like there's a ton of things that just we've done as a species, but it's hard to tell us then right back to our faces, you can't do this or else the way of life that you know will be gone.
I mean, let me. I just want to process this for a second. Um, even in to kind of tack on to what you had said, Frank. One of the things that has always been a frustration of mine is a lot of the world today don't recognize what are still critical problems and try to address and resolve those. To your point, Frank, we've sent men on the moon. We have created autonomous vehicles. We have created solar energy, and we've done a lot of good. But there are still a lot of existing problems that are still here today. In my state, human trafficking is still at incredible numbers that you would think that you would be able to accomplish and resolve some of these issues here. Even the obvious ones like poverty, third world countries struggling with hunger and not being able to teach them these technological resources and investing your money into places like that. That's all there. And it's sad that we as not even just a nation, just internationally, while we try to help and make significant differences with things, there's still so many gaps to us as a human society that we could become incredible, but we're only just okay at this point, in my honest opinion.
Because we are a purely divided, and I think inherently actually divided people. It's because we span a bunch of closed off communities from each other. I mean, how much does the Northeast interact with, the Deep South? How much does someone from America really interact with like a community from, the United Kingdom, or really anywhere in Africa or most places in Asia? I really think that there's not as much intersection as there could be, because people tend to travel in packs, and the more close their pack becomes, which is sort of an echo chamber mentality, but really it becomes a team sport, and political will becomes a team sport where people just disagree just to disagree in some respects. But the fact is, a lot of the biggest things that could help us out are a sheer factor of either political will, special interests, or just a matter of people having such violently different opinions that they'll never let the other get their way. So just with all that going on, I feel like we're not in a place to really improve as much as we could. And that does upset me, but I get it, because I mean, we've spent thousands and thousands and many more thousands of years just arguing which god is real. And we're still fighting wars on that. And what for? Like, to me, it seems so easy, but this is like the meaning of someone's entire existence, to fight for that cause. But they'll never agree to disagree. It's a cycle of never-ending chaos. So I think political will, in a lot of ways, is a major stopgap.
Well, I'm not even gonna say that it's entirely like on the fault of people's beliefs, attitudes, and values. I think in a lot of ways, our world is kind of in the way it is, in kind of the uncooperative way it is, due to just the general concept of just how government works. I mean, it's not like your average Chinese individual, your average, say, office worker in China is realistically, with the way their government is set up, going to have any say in political matters. Um, Basically, whoever's elected in office is going to do what's best for them, which in some ways might be what's best for their country. And that's not exclusive to China. That's how our government works. That's how the United Kingdom's government works. That's how really every government works. I dare you to find me a developed country in the world that has a governmental system that does not have corruption somewhere in its at its highest level of government. And it was really evident a lot to me here in America with, and Frank is gonna love me saying this, but with the very public acknowledgments and political assassination of Bernie Sanders during the 2020 election cycle. The only candidate that really had anything, I mean, aside from Biden, who had a lot going for him, being a former vice president under the Obama administrations, that's his claim to fame. But at every opportunity where, and I'm not even saying just Bernie, but I'm saying a couple other people that ran, all it took was one flip of the switch in a newsroom, a call from a multi-million-dollar lobbyist to the politician that they have their hands on, and it was impossible for anyone other than the political favorite, i.e. Joe Biden, to get the nomination. The fact that it can be done with a flip of a switch, with me picking up my phone and going, hey, run a slander story on Buttigieg 8 o'clock tonight. All right, good. The fact that our government works like that, and the fact that not only our government works like that, but every other government in the world works like that, is a little bit disheartening.
So I have one question, and maybe it's naivety, maybe it's, my belief that, you know, something really did hit a flashpoint in the last 20 years with the age of information. Do you think this will be fixed in any respect as we become the ones in power? I don't believe it will all the way, but I believe that with us being like the uh at the baby boomer ages of 54 to 65 or whatever, once we get to that point and really everybody on the planet now knows very efficiently how to use the internet and modern technology, it's just a matter of, is there really anyone that's not going to be savvy enough to fall for it?
So I'm glad you asked that because to me, the number one corrupter of government, corrupter of political systems, is that cold hard cash. And right now, currently in the world, most people that have that cold hard cash are older, baby boomers, even Gen Xers, kind of, are in that class of people that have the most money on average. Now, very recently, people our age have been, or slightly older than us, have been able to amass fortunes using technology. Elon Musk is like just the first one that pops into my mind, but there's several others. Many young Chinese investors that have now worked their way into the top 500 richest people in the world at age 24, 25, like through investing. That is very insane. Um, I think as that curve lessens, where here's the old traditionalist mentality, the baby boomers and the Gen Xers, here we are. Once that wealth inequality starts to kind of even out, or we even, I mean, eventually it'll go all the way down because they'll all have passed, unless Futurama had something and we're freezing heads, um, which might happen. It's anything's possible. I made a bet, and that's why my sideburns are this long over something I thought wasn't possible to happen. Anything can happen. But yeah, once our generation kind of takes control of our economy naturally, I think things will change. I think our beliefs, values, morals, our vision as youth, and granted, it's not like all youth share the same view. But the prevalence, like, great example, I do not think homophobia will be a very widespread thing in 20 years.
Neither do I. Honestly, the fact is, like, the social media generations becoming the ones in power, you can't go back to the period where no one has perspective.
Yeah.
That's kind of my opinion of it. Jordan, additional thoughts on that?
So I normally interpret a lot of things in an optimistic state of mind. And when I look at my vision of what I'll see in 20 years from now, I think a lot of it is going to be contingent on who we consider to be public figures, who we consider to be inspirational moguls, who is in political leadership in the future for us. One of the big drivers that essentially create societies that we see today are the people that are in power. And that's, from an influential level to being your freaking town mayor. If things align correctly, I'm in 100% investment to that. And I believe that we will be in better positions and we will see a lot of incredible progress by the time that we get into, our middle-aged years by that point. But what sucks right now is with the power that social media has created and with a lot of the disadvantages that have come out of it, I am just scared to see what we will look like in the future from now. Because if we don't adhere and look up to the right people and don't give the right people platforms to be able to actually speak about this stuff, then we just run into ruts and we run into just nothing but problems. I mean, this is kind of a silly example, but in the intent of what this is, I have seen two types of Instagram influencers over the course of this whole protesting that has been going on. One, they're actually showing on their story saying, hey, we're here, we're helping out. This is what these protests are actually looking like right now. We're going to help everybody. Let's go get refreshments for them. Like, they're investing. That's awesome. Kick butt, help them out, and actually be about the message that's happening. Then and you see the other side of this. The other one where they're like, yeah, equality. And then they got 200,000 likes on the image, but there's nothing else in value behind it. I've seen some, I'm not going to name names, but I've seen influencers that their entire affiliation with that platform is because they look good in a bikini. But the moment that they start talking about intellectual political situations, that's not their brand, that's not their model. So when they go and be called influencers, that's my frustration, because they have a platform and a power, but what is that for? What are you trying to add on to this? Listen to your people that are actually giving intellectual conversation about it. Listen to people who are actually addressing these issues. Listen to people who actually can bring a productive part of society into this mix and make us better people out of it. So that's my point.
Yeah. I guess I can agree with you on that. I think the one difference is that I kind of look at, so I look at the statement of what a company does. I look at kind of the history they've had with race, with, their employment practices and everything, or just someone's usual attitude, if they've ever apologized for any racial controversy. There's things like that, but then there's the right way there is just a perfectly right way to deliver a message, and it's by invoking the same anger that a lot of people are feeling right now, a lot of the same sadness and hurt and trauma. I know this is gonna be kind of funny. Have you guys seen the Game Grumps Twitter today?
I haven't checked it out, no.
So I want you to, when you have a free minute, look at their statement and then look at JonTron's statement. The Game Grumps, I would say, was actually perfect. They could not have done that any better. They could not have responded to this any better. And that's interesting because Aaron, he was legitimately concerned, like, Game Grumps is a brand. And people really don't like brands getting in on this stuff because it feels like an obvious PR stunt sometimes. But then he put out the statement. And there's no way you can take that as any other way but absolutely goddamn genuine.
So I'll go ahead and take this moment here to read what Game Grumps had put out here.
It's a little bit vulgar.
It's a lot of words, and yeah, I'll try to keep myself censored so I don't have to worry about giving myself a headache if this ever goes anywhere else outside of Twitch.
Letter and all of that, I guess.
We at Game Grumps support the efforts of the Black Lives Matter movement and stand firmly against white supremacy, racism, and police brutality. We are donating a total of $20,000 to charities that support Black-owned businesses, Black LGBTQ+, support groups, and bail funds to help protesters who are fed up with this S. We have listed these charities in the replies, which you too can donate to. Even if it's a small amount, it all helps. If you are at all offended by these statements, Well, there are tons of other internet shows you can go watch. This is where we stand. We're not releasing any new merch items this week out of respect for the movement and to reduce noise. So, this is actually kind of in
There's
the...
more.
Do you want me to keep reading
Yeah,
on that
this
then?
is important.
Okay.
This is
Okay.
especially important.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read this part then. However, we cannot make this statement without acknowledging our own history. It is extremely necessary that this be said with the context that Game Grumps has posted content for many years, and in those early ones we use hurtful language and hurtful jokes, sometimes at the expense of POC, black, gay, or trans people. There is no excuse for this. For those who we've hurt with our words, from Aaron, Dan, and everyone at Game Grumps, you deserve an apology. We are deeply effing sorry. We shouldn't have said, or shouldn't have to have made these sorts of mistakes in order to be better. We shouldn't have had to hurt people to learn. You also shouldn't have had to wait this long for a formal apology for it. We believe that just simply stopping this kind of behavior was enough, but we understand that the hurt of those affected deserve to be acknowledged, and the problem deserves to be talked about openly. You deserve respect, and we did not give you that respect in those moments. F that, we have to be better. And again, if it bothers you that this is where we stand, you can easily unsubscribe. The last part is join us in getting active. Check this thread for ways you can help fight white supremacy and police brutality. Stay safe out there. F white supremacy. F police brutality. Black Lives Matter. So
I couldn't come up with anything better than that if I tried.
honestly
that's
so I want to
just
take this perspective here. I just talked about this a second ago about social media influencers that may not fit in the context of what this situation is going along here. This is an example of somebody that doesn't go anywhere into a political platform. However, they are communicating an effective message. That's the differentiator to me. They're willing to go to their audience and say, hey guys, this is the bad thing. This is what we need to focus on, and this is how we're going to help that bad thing go on in this circumstance here. I respect that. I respect that 100% because there's an actual intent to the message that's happening behind it. And they're open and transparent about the fact that they're not perfect people either. And no one should ever go into that mentality of it. I've never been a perfect person. I've made a bajillion mistakes. I know I've made jokes in expense of other people, other demographics, and all these other things. I'm well aware of that. So have, I'm sure, both of you guys as well. We've all done it.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
acknowledging that that's the bad thing, we grow up, we mature, we understand those mistakes, and we be the people that are influential in the community and are making a positive impact. That's the difference maker that I'd love to see us do in the future. And that's why I love that, like I said this last week, that's why I love we do it Level Up for Charity. This is an opportunity for us to bring people together to opportunities and platforms to say, hey, we need to help somebody. This is how we help them through creating a community that can be there together.
Yeah. I mean, some of my best moments this entire quarantine, most of my best moments this entire quarantine have either been with my brother or with all of you. Seriously.
Yeah, it's been a difference maker. I mean, Dylan and I, this will probably be sentimental, heartfelt moment here. So, but you know, I still remember during our last charity event when 24 hours sleep deprived and already tired from setup and all those other things, where Dylan and I bumped into each other upstairs in the venue that we were at for our event. And I just remember telling him and going, dude, I love what we're creating. Because out of a lot of that we're putting together is about the fact that I've just said it like this, and it's not entirely accurate, but it sums it up pretty well. The world sucks right now, and especially in a time like this, it really, really sucks. And if we can continue to build as a community and to continue to build as colleagues and friends as the three of us are, that to me is how we end up being better in the future, to be able to evolve and to be able to make things like we're seeing today. Like we have the ability, we have the platform and opportunity to be there with people to help grow and be the best versions of people that we can be.
Yeah, I think that the one silver lining, in this entire thing, in this entire, second crisis. Not really the first, because not really applicable, but with Black Lives Matter having a resurgence, with everybody just, you know, no longer submitting, making it very clear what their demands are, and we can get into that in a little bit, but this is all 50 states in the country, most communities screaming out in unison, this isn't right. This country has a deep institutional flaw, and it hurts some of us more than others. Much more. It hurts all of us, but it definitely hurts some of us far more than others. And that's institutional. There are deep, rampant problems with our institution. And I promise I'm not going to keep going back to this, but this is exactly why it's said for an entire year, this was the Bernie Sanders moment. It was. And I think it still is, but not in the way that gets him elected. It's just, we're carrying that torch now because we're finally ready to admit we're not happy. We're really angry at what's going on right now. I don't know if you guys saw this article today, but during COVID-19, during the quarantine, billionaires' wealth gained by over $500 billion in total. And looking at that, and looking at entire other swaths of the population who are struggling now to make ends meet, probably are going to have difficulty, getting rent money together now that, you know, jobs might be opening back up, but like, there's going to be so much demand for jobs that good luck getting one very quickly. And how are you going to make rent in the meantime? It's tough. But meanwhile, the rich got richer. And I don't think that's justice. And meanwhile, during the police brutality protest, I can't even count anymore, even mentally, just running off instance after instance, examples of the police conducting police brutality at the police brutality protest. It seems like every single crazy thing has either been some kind of cause and effect of, some act of aggression on their part, or just, independent of much of the actual other protests. And it's kind of what I want to get in next. What do we want here, and how do we get it? I think I will have Dylan start.
Well, so you ask, what do we want here? Well, you have to remember, like you said, there are different kinds of, there are different people with different levels of privilege in this country.
Yes.
So asking, well, the four of us here are kind of just your traditional white guys.
Yes.
One of us here has much more money than the others. I'm not going to say who. He has a lot of privilege. And, I think he might be very happy with how things are going right
now. Why?
But,
I got gut punched so hard on not expecting that entire sequence to happen. Oh, man. Well, thank you for that, Dylan.
So, out of us four, we all might want different things, but ultimately, three of us, not including our beloved departed guest right here,
thanks.
The three of us have pretty similar desires because we are all average white guys. Now, if I may ask someone, maybe say a friend of mine that is a person of color, maybe ask a friend of mine who is a woman, maybe ask a friend of mine who is a member of the a much more obvious, not hiding it member of the LGBT, but all members of the LGBT really can apply in this. I mostly am referring to people who are very openly gay, very openly trans. They might have different desires for how we move forward as well. But if there's any one thing that all of these different groups of people have agreed on, and it's even weird when I walk around at work today, Fox News is on one of the TVs, and I hear a news anchor on there saying, that cop deserves a first degree murder charge. On Fox News, the place I did not expect to hear that. Um, it really does show that what happened to start all this. Um, you'll be very hard pressed to find a majority, I'll say, of any group of people
Yeah.
that think that what happened was right.
There's a very loud batch of contrarians, and that's really it.
Well, yeah,
Otherwise, everybody agrees that was messed up. Um, it would be very hard to prove premeditation. Don't give him first. Second is good. We can easily get them up. We can get him on second.
but when you still have people who, and this whole thing, and even COVID, really every issue that we've had that has been a serious issue that we need to deal with in this country over the last year, or I'll even say 4 years, whether or not it is a political issue, has become a very partisan issue. COVID-19, all of your representatives, senators, governors that want to stay in lockdown, to go the extra mile to stay safe, all Democrats. All of the, or most of the people that want to rush us back into opening up, take these, precautions, but open up more rapidly. Again, majority are going to be right wing or Republican. To me, this is not an issue. COVID-19 should not have been an issue that should have been bipartisan. Or that should not have been partisan, I mean. It's not like the virus is going to go register and vote for Bernie. It's not like the virus is going to go, oh, you know what? Maybe we should get that Rush Limbaugh. Maybe we should endorse him for, It's not like the virus should have split our country the way it did. But it did. It's not like the absolutely barbaric murder of a unarmed, relatively innocent black man by a corrupt cop in a psychotic, insane way should have taken people and split them the way it has. And
especially with, in the same week and a half, like, it was a barrage of these. It was George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor. All three of those, each tragic in their own different way.
George Floyd is the one that people focus on because it's the most unequivocally you cannot argue that that's the most straightforward one. That's the most, this cop legitimately had this psychotic break, or this just was a terrible person and legitimately brutally murdered someone in a way that is simply inhumane. It's barbaric. I mean, it's not like there's humane ways of killing people, but no, especially in this case, no, this was terrible. And George Floyd, that's the one that everyone will look at and go, bad, no matter what, bad. The other ones you'll have people argue about in ways.
I don't understand how, but I mean, Breonna Taylor, that one shocked me to my core when I saw it, because I imagined just being at in my apartment with a significant other, and we just open the door, it's the cops, they fire 22 shots blindly, and one of us is dead now. That's terrifying. I could never imagine that. And that's white privilege right there. I could never imagine that. These cops need to be held to a higher standard. Especially during these protests. Keep your friggin' body cameras on. If they go off, we should know. Your departments should get rid of you. Because you're not upholding the good name of your department. If you want a polite society, you have to be trusted, and they've lost the trust. And that's why a lot of people are resorting to violence, because violence is being enacted against them. And while there would be legal repercussions against them if they were to take action, well, on the other side, they do it with impunity. It's a terrifying imbalance of power where the cops have grown increasingly militarized, yet our leadership decides that's not enough. Let's send in the actual military. So I look at all this and I say that it's taken a lot just to get the minor concessions that we have. But this fight is long from over because those other cases that I mentioned are still unresolved, and these occurrences that are happening every day are still happening. Institutionally, it's still hard to have faith in this system. And I know some of these protests have their flaws, but that's not the bigger picture. It's just not. What is we can't stop until there's concrete, lasting change and precedent. Because if not, we're just going to be doing the same thing in 5 years, except worse. Last time it was Kaepernick kneeling. This time, you're getting protests with a couple a couple percentage of people that are going to damage property. I'm afraid that it's going to become continuous escalation if they pretend to listen now and don't do anything long term.
I think at this point, a lot of the nation of itself, the description I could use is tired. Dylan kind of hit it on the head when, or maybe it was Frank, I'm sorry, but when you had expressed that this is something that we may not ever know about. I've been pulled over twice in my life, and they've both been very cordial, regular greetings with each other. And any interaction I've ever had with cops, especially as somebody who's had a family with cops in them, I have not had that negative situation before. I have, let alone ever seen a cop pull a gun on somebody in real time before. I've heard of and know about situations of my friends who have had those situations of opposite color, who it immediately escalates after that point. And I think the way that I look at it is we have to acknowledge the fact that, yes, there is a problem and there is a solution to this problem, and we need to do everything that we can to try to get to the point that we are trying to make that solution, because we're not there yet. We are pointing the problem out right now, and these protests, in my opinion, are doing incredible things to help steer people in those directions. Now, in the course of media, some of these riots have led to that being skewed, though, and that is a scare. Seeing local businesses be impacted in such a negative way, that is still a cause for concern, and to be careful about that. There's still a video that racks in my brain I saw on Twitter last week of this black man that came out, and he is to a point of just, it's almost like maddening, right? He sorry, I just got distracted with Dylan going over there.
I do know what you're discussing, though. The one where they're destroying his business.
It's the one where they burned down his business and destroyed his truck, and he's just yelling at the crowd that's in front of him saying, "You took this from me, and it took everything from me to get there too. I'm a black man too. Why if you're upset with the white man, why are you taking it out on me?" And that was a good personification of understanding that you don't have to destroy some other person's business to make a point. The point is that there are thousands of Americans right now, hundreds of thousands even, that are currently in the streets right now saying, we as a society need to uphold and design new systems. Side note, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but a little promotional, and because some people may not know a lot about it, if you've ever seen the video from Hassam Minhaj on the broken policing system, I'll put a link to it in chat for those of you that want to watch this after this chat here. But it tells you a lot about how there's so much red tape in trying to design new formalities and new training systems for police systems today. And it's sad. It's very sad that we as a nation cannot look to see what the problem is and immediately address it because of some of what we experience today. It really is.
Yeah.
Well, if I may say, and not to make light of any of this, but I have to go defend my small business, guys. I'm equipped. I am ready to go.
Right.
Nothing can go wrong at all.
Yeah, you're not gonna nearly die or anything.
No,
That man was one of the president actually ran apologetics for that man on national television. That blows my mind.
It's pretty terrible when you get to that.
If you don't know about this, chat, there was a man in Dallas who and originally Twitter had said, "Oh, this is a business owner protecting his property." Nope. It was a bar he liked. And he went outside with a sword he had laying around and he charged at a group of them to protect a bar he liked. I don't know why anyone on Earth would do that. That, like, charging into an angry mob with a lethal weapon is a suicide mission. It is. But also, it's a bar. There will probably be a GoFundMe for it in a week. Like, property can be replaced. It always can. My local bar just burnt down. Not even relating to a protest. It just burnt down. Yeah, it did this, like, last week. Like, last Wednesday, Tuesday. Like, it was before the George Floyd story had really even gotten big. And plus, that would not have been the first culprit. But the thing is, all of a sudden, they had a huge outpouring of donations in like a day to get them back on their feet. And they're a private institution that you know, would have just charged them more for drinks anyways, probably, once they were back up. But like, a lot of these small businesses, their local economies, look, looting and rioting, that's indiscriminate. And you're going to have a percentage of any large angry protest that does that. I know a lot of them are trying to get them to stop because they're fearing for their own lives, seeing what's happening in these other communities. But you're always going to have a certain portion that's doing that. And I very much don't like that that's happening, but I think we can actually help those rebuild after the fact. I don't care so much about, you know, the places that can eat the cost, the places more emblematic of structural racism that might exist in a community. I think in that respect, it's actually a very powerful visual if they get damaged or if they get defaced. The thing is, a lot of people just think protesting is, you know, you use your voice and don't do it in any way that inconveniences me. But that's not how change gets made. Sometimes it's ugly. I mean, some of the most brutal riots eventually ended up with some of the freedoms you and I take for granted every day. And I just hope 50 years from now, you know, just minorities everywhere, but really everybody will get to enjoy, you know, take for granted a less militarized, less aggressive, less violent police system. I would love to see that. And if someone does mess up, they'll be held accountable. If all of this does that, it'll have all been worth it, and we might be able to get justice for these people.
So this does bring me to a point that I would like to talk about a little bit. So the whole crux of what has been happening, you know, Black Lives Matter. So there are basically three different movements / slogans that have really dictated people in this the whole, well, I mean, even going back to Ferguson, going back to times earlier in the 2010s, and even
Trayvon Martin, the
Trayvon
flash,
Martin.
basically the flashpoint of all this.
Yeah. So there are 3 different sayings that have been applied to this, and that is Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, and All Lives Matter. Now, all 3 of those are people will find themselves in one of those 3 camps. I would like to, in a very nuanced way, kind of set the record straight for how those things theoretically should be taken. And I want to use an analogy from one of my favorite Canadian philosophers, Lance Storm.
Wait.
Hold on,
I have
hold
to
on.
say,
Go
this
ahead,
is very funny. You're wearing a blue shirt. I'm wearing a black shirt. Hey, Jordan, you wearing an all shirt?
I'm wearing a gray shirt, but okay.
All the colors. If you're
All the colors.
Okay. So, but here's the saying. So let's replace lives in all 3 of these statements. Let's replace lives with something a bit easier to comprehend. House. Say black houses matter, all houses matter, blue houses matter. So, using this example, yes, while everyone's house does matter, if we have firefighters, if we have emergency personnel, and they are choosing where they need to spend their efforts, they're not going to spend their efforts and spend their resources on every house, even the ones that are fine. They are going to specifically target the ones that are on fire, the ones that need the help. That is where I'd like to make this clear, that yes, on a theoretical level, when not used as a negating phrase to Black Lives Matter, I do agree. All life is sacred. But that doesn't mean that you should spread the same resources, the same that the same problems exist across all lives. Yes, everyone has something in their life, some sort of socioeconomic downturn. In those poor white trash communities in places like Michigan, Indiana, Idaho, most states have a white trash populace that lives in very poor conditions, can't get enough to eat. Yes, those people matter, but those people are much less common in this country than people of color, like the problems experienced by people of color. So yes, theoretically, all lives matter, but all lives are not enduring the massive problem that is currently ever prevalent. And then saying that blue lives matter, theoretically, I agree with that as well. But again, blue lives matter. But why is my camera doing this? I hate you, camera. There we go. Okay. Yes, blue houses. Using the old example, blue houses matter, but when you have like 3 or 4 blue houses out of 10, which is still a high number, like 3 to 4 out of 10, that's a high number. That's 30%, 40%. Being the ones to light the black houses on fire, that's a little bit of an issue. That's a little bit of a thing that we should really nip in the bud and really should do some structural change about. And again, I love cops. I love the ones that do their job, do respect everyone, respect people of color, respect minority communities, do not abuse the power entrusted to them by our laws. However,
there's one corollary. To be a good cop, one must do all that and speak out against the ones that aren't. Or else that's the missing piece. That is the root of the phrase ACAB. Anyone at home can Google that. I am not going to go into an entire conversation about that. But basically, because it's such an institution that we need to have trust in for society to work, they need to hold each other accountable. The
So,
people in the protests are holding each other accountable. So the people up top got it as well.
so, you guys know this. I don't know how much I've divulged this into the world of our audience, but I grew up in a religious household. I grew up Christian. I grew up Lutheran, to be more specific, in what denomination. And one of the things that stuck out to me, I had caught this from somebody who had shared it out, and in this exact instance regarding Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, they brought to example something that I don't know if you guys are familiar with, what's called the Beatitudes.
Yeah.
So this is written in the gospel that basically it addresses blessings to particular groups of people. And this brought to fruition the thought about how in this situation right now, yeah, all lives are equal, but that doesn't mean that all lives are equally living the same life that they're living right now. There's still strong prejudices. There's still hatred. There's still a ton of other things that are happening in today's world that we need to help. If we care about, in this case, our audiences, if we care about demographics that are minorities that are struggling right now, more specifically in this case with Black Lives Matter, we have to understand that there's a problem there. We're not doing its justice to help them to grow in society, to be there, to help, to make things in a way that brings us all together and equal. We could say we're all equal, but societally, if you look at education investment, if you even obvious one right now that's happening, we're not there. When in Matthew it says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." He's not saying, "Blessed is everybody. Have a good night, everybody." He's addressing specific ones there in that case. And I kind of want to, so that we don't take this into a 3-hour conversation, I do want to start kind of getting toward the kind of wrapping for this, and then we'll take Q&A. We have a couple of questions that I do want to touch base on tonight from our audience, which, by the way, chat, feel free to go ahead and start posting them. Don't worry, I still got a chat log for everybody that posted throughout the course of this year.
And
So I want to wrap
chronologically.
So I want to wrap by kind of talking in the same subject that I'm in. A lot of what I live as today is embodied by, and regardless if you are Christian or atheist or agnostic, whatever your hold is, the philosophy that I fall behind is a lot about a passage that I had a while back. I had to look it up because I forgot some of it. But, it constitutes what essentially love is today. The passage comes from 1 Corinthians, and it goes, "Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away." So what I want to wrap about tonight is that I hope that us as a nation will consider the definition of love and consider making progress toward making a better world, especially with everything going on right now. Do you guys have any closing thoughts that you'd like to wrap with?
I guess mine is, remember that to everybody in chat, you guys, and I don't know, just everybody should know this, but it's hard to because we become so single-minded in the things in our lives. This isn't something we can stop caring about. This isn't something that's going to go away in a definitive way for a very long time. This has been a hundreds of years long fight that's only just changed shape. It's never gone away. And the thing is, if we really want to make a difference, and we can be the generation that changes this, but to do that, what we have to do is stop accepting words. We have to stop accepting that someone says so much as Black Lives Matter, and that's it. They're on our side. Even if they kneel with you, they hug you. If they turn around and leave a pair of children fatherless the next day, and he wasn't even doing anything, or if they even if he was doing something, if they decided to shoot when he wasn't life threatening, when they could have just tased him or just cuffed him, anybody just doing the right thing, we want that. But instead, we see these problems. And if that's the kind of thing we see the day after they hug, shake hands, or they just immediately go out and tear gas people or throw or shoot rubber bullets, looks can be deceiving, words can be deceiving. You gotta look at action and you gotta look at it consistently. Not at a moment, but you gotta look at it forever. Because if they slip up, then that hurts all of us.
Dylan, you want to wrap it up here and then we'll go Q&A?
Yeah, I have 3 quick quotes that kind of encapsulate everything here. So the first one, which is the one that is most important of the 3, is literally, it was not even really a quote, it's just the whole analogy that I used earlier with the houses. I mean, yes, theoretically, to those people who, the all lives matter and the blue lives matter, you're not wrong. That theoretically, as a core concept, yes, all lives matter. But again, not all lives are the ones that are not all houses are on fire. Not all people need the same type of help right now. And there's a very specific group of people that make up a lot of our country that do need the support and the help to kind of move past these terrible times we live in the middle of COVID-19. I mean, again, this is all happening within the box of COVID-19 in 2020. No one wants to be rioting. No one wants to be out there. Oh, sorry, hold on. No one wants to be rioting. No one wants to be out there making an ass of themselves, robbing public places. No one wants to do that for fun. People want to live a good, comfortable, nice, fulfilling lives with their families. And while some people might be able to do that more easily than others, it's those that cannot that we should put a little bit more conscientious effort into helping them attain that goal. Now, the other 2 quotes that I have to end this off are as follows. And they're not even from me. They're from our esteemed guest right here. So I'll just let him take it.
What?
Why can I do the splits? That's weird. I am uncomfortable with myself. And I could be the quickest man on the planet. Thank you,
What?
Logan. That was incredible.
Logan? Wait, what?
Is that Logan?
That's
Paul?
Jake Paul.
Wait, I typed in Logan Paul and this popped up.
Wait. His whole time.
Oh my.
I thought you brought him up because, oh boy, this is incredible. So Jake Paul was caught looting in the midst of a riot. So that's why I thought you used
Logan
Jake
actually
Paul.
put out a genuinely decent statement.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so I switched the 2. Well, here's the thing. Is there really any difference between the 2?
Yeah, one's
Surprisingly right now, yeah.
One's the it's everyday bro, and then the other is the suicide forest bro. It's the suicide forest bro. That's the new rap single. So
Well, anyway,
but
before we get into that,
weirdly enough, the better response came from the one that did a vlog in a suicide forest. Right. But he made a good point, actually, that he literally said this quote: "The reason I am able to get away with so much of the hooligan-esque that I do in my vlogs is because I am white, because of my privilege." He sees it. We all should. Should we get to questions?
Yeah. I got the first one that we got asked here from Saint Santos 1341. Can you guys discuss a bit about how working remote 100% of the time has impacted yourselves mentally? So I think
That's, I
technically
guess, for
speaking,
you and me.
yeah, so
Yeah, you guys
technically
know
speaking,
2.5.
it's you and I. I think technically I've worked the most remote because I have not been in my office for 2 months since this point here. So I can kind of start out with this. If I'm honest, there were definitely points in time in the early game of this that um, I think my mental health did take a hit. Uh, I was still very encouraged. Frank mentioned this earlier that having us, our community, our friends, our family that we can interact and communicate with still, and the gift of the internet and technology has allowed us to still be together has been an incredible help. Had I not been in the world of Discord or social media or just even the ability to just text my brother or anything, I know for a guaranteed fact I would be a very different person right now. And I'm very thankful that there were a lot of opportunities for me to continue to still promote these conversations. And I think for me, it started out as, God, this sucks being inside so much. But then I used a lot of that energy to start investing into how we can keep making Level Up for Charity even better. Like it just turned into fuel for me. And I just used that to just keep, kicking butt and trying to make some of the cool things that we're seeing today. So that's for me at least. Frank, what about you?
So on my end, yeah, at the beginning, like there was so much that had to change because my mom, I mean, this year has been crazy for personal reasons as well. I mean, last Christmas, I know you guys know this, but for everybody in chat, my mom had an accident where she fell the morning after Christmas, and she was in basically a rehabilitation center for a while and just trying to get back up to tip top shape. And eventually, she was just staying in a condo that was more wheelchair accessible. But because of some things that ended up shaking out, she was coming back home the same week my brother was coming home. So we had to get out. And so we ended up in an apartment that my best friend owned for 2 weeks alone. And it was different, and it wasn't ours, and it felt really, really odd, and that got to me. um Work became kind of harder to focus on, but I still focused on it. But the news became like it seared into my mind every day, and just uncertainty about where we'd go next. And as that lessened, then, I tried to pick up a couple productive hobbies. I played a lot more ukulele. I started investing into the stock market. What's it called? I, of
I
course,
love
helped
that
my brother
investing
out with
into the
the math.
stock market was a hobby for you.
Yeah,
Wait,
I
wait,
did that.
wait, wait, hold
Did
on.
that.
When did you beat ukulele? I didn't know anyone beat that game.
Oh my God. So I I did the mask project with my brother and spent a lot of quality time with him. We got home and things were good with the family for, the entire time my brother was here. And then it was just a matter of, as the months crept on, and more just started to get chaotic around the country. And I just seep into, this is my home office now. I'm here 90% of the work week. And I don't know. I feel like it's hard to create standards for myself, and I have to keep fighting for that. That's tough. It is. And trying to keep myself doing things, keep myself active when days just feel like blinks and weeks just feel like longer blinks. And hopefully that's done very soon, but come next week we could find out it's not. I'm
Yep.
I'm kind of in a weird state of mind. I'm not sad. I just have lost all sense of time. I've lost all sense of the value of my time. I'll I've fallen kind of back into the same routine that I did when I was unemployed, but I'm still employed and doing work. It's just I need to keep standards going for myself, or it's going to be a lot harder for me to readjust when quarantine officially ends for good.
God, part of me really envies you guys, for being able to. I mean,
I wouldn't.
I mean,
Regimens are good. Like, it's kind of what's happening to school children right now, man. Like, they are messed up right now because they aren't getting out of the house. They weren't doing much of anything. They were just staying inside and didn't even get to go see friends as the weather was getting warmer. And all that's important to development. But for us, it's like we're very routine as adults. We're very routine based still, and it's like going to the gym every day. You go, you go, you go. If you skip a day, all of a sudden it's a lot easier to skip every damn day after that. For me, it's like, man, I just haven't felt like very productive today, and then that day turns into two, and then you're like, I gotta stop this before it becomes a problem.
Well, true, and I can agree with that, but it's just there is a part of me that, as much as I love the fact that you guys are able to stay safe and continue earning an income, there's part of me that's just so bitter at the fact that I have to risk my life really almost every day to go into a place where people do not, customers do not abide by my personal space. A lot of customers
Hold
don't.
on one sec. We're trending on Twitter, not us, but my city.
Ooh, that's
So, this is what that was. I just saw the video. Oh my god. Oh no. Oh god. No, no, no. Oh god. That is graphic.
That they're
So,
protesting past
this
8
guy
p.m.
shoved an elderly man, and he fell very badly to the ground.
A protester pushed an old man, or a cop?
No, a cop. It was on Niagara Square. Oh my god. It's like half an hour from me. Holy crap, man.
Well, what a breaking news alert.
Yeah, top trend on Twitter. It's like this is the second big event from my area that's happened in the last 3 days. So,
The fourth one was
we're
hot
famous.
singles were in Frank's area.
I'm the hot single.
In his area, i.e., his room.
Yes. So,
okay. I got another
question?
one here for Josh, or from Josh, that is. I feel like this happened in the past before. Do you think this will happen again in the future? Because we as Americans seem to not want to learn from past mistakes. We kind of touched on this already. Yeah, we kind of already touched on this.
Stay vigilant.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think we have to get too deep into that because we already had a pretty good conversation on that here.
If we pause, it'll happen again.
I'm seeing if there's any other questions.
I'll answer the joke one. I think tacos are mid tier. Meh.
I prefer burritos.
Same.
But if you were to have a taco, soft shell or hard shell?
Oh, soft.
Soft.
Easily.
Soft. Soft gang.
Okay.
Soft lives matter.
Come on, bro.
Levity, guys. Levity.
I mean, come on. I can't cut a hard shell with this, or at least I can. It just won't work.
Boing.
All right. What other questions we got here?
I'm not catching any other ones. Those were the kind of the main two.
Sarah's wait. Are the blue houses selling the black houses? 30%. That was the 30%. That was the, that was the part of that analogy. Just want to make sure that. Other chat comments that are important. The real joke is that Jordan recognizes that in regards to the ball.
I mean, whatever you expect. Look, you can say whatever you want to about my life, but I somehow still watch Logan Paul's podcast because, ready for this, there's a reason for this. Not because I think he's an intellectual person, because I still 100% disagree with that. But to see his evolution from when he was an absolute dipwad with the suicide video and all of that to like where he went today is surprising to me, as a matter of fact. Like, you actually see an authentic 25-year-old dude learn that he was an absolute dumbass. It's actually impressive.
That is the nice healing power of internet hate mobs. Sometimes you actually learn, and you really learn, and you realize why you were wrong. And sometimes you double down, and everybody just hates you.
Well, it's funny. The only reason I ever saw the suicide forest video was actually at Jordan's house for a New Year's Eve party. We're playing Monopoly, and he's just like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna put on a video, okay?" Puts on a video. I look up at it, like I glance up while we're playing Monopoly, and I'm like, "Oh man, they really put some really heavy production values into this video. Who's this?"
Yep.
And well, the next day, we found out.
Look, say what you want. He's the exact same age that I am, within a month, and he's done a lot of crazy stuff. Not a lot of good stuff, but he's done a lot of crazy stuff. But anyway,
I help fund Breaking the Lore. I do not pay attention to Logan podcast. I like to make that clear.
Dylan's trying to cover himself. Well, guys, this has been a great second episode here. I appreciate you guys being on. Dylan will probably be on here more often as a co-host, but I'm sure Frank will make his return at some point in time when we want to have more conversations about the world.
Talking serious issues with you guys is, it's always to be treasured because, we love our fun here, but just genuinely, like, this stuff matters, and it always does, and it always changes. And having people that you can talk about, and I encourage you to do this at home.
Yep.
Having people you can talk to about this makes it a little less grueling to live through. So, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for talking with me. I love talking with you guys.
I want to conclude with two more things real quick. The first thing is a question of Frank, and that's just essentially, is there anything that you would like to take this opportunity to promote? Anything that you want to direct attention toward before we wrap up? The second part of this, before you answer that question, though, is I want to know if you guys want to be still in this voice chat afterward so that we can all experience Sonic Riders together.
I might take a couple minutes at least and get out of voice chat, but I can easily come back in.
Sure.
Dylan.
I have several.
Did you see the Buffalo thing, by the way?
I have not looked at it yet. I kind of want to wait till I'm done with all my audio editing I have to do after this before I bum myself out.
Yeah, I agree, man. I guess in terms of a couple community things, one is personal. I mean, Protect Our Protectors is still accepting donations. We've gotten all the material, and really any money that goes left is just kind of recouping my brother because there was a heavy personal cost to him, and it would be much appreciated if, that could be done. But regardless, I mean, just as well, these community bail funds, they're huge, Innocent people are getting imprisoned, and especially in New York, they can be detained for more than 24 hours. So I would say the New York Community Bail Fund is a huge one because they're arresting more and more people every day over there, and they're doing some awful things in New York. I don't know how much you guys are seeing, but so those are the main ones. But I encourage you, look into your area, see if there's a bail fund. Look into nearby areas that you care about. See if there's bail funds for them. That's the biggest thing I can say. And other than that, just always fight the spread of misinformation and be a positive voice for change.
Very well said.
So next week is to be determined right now if we're going to do episode 3 next week or the following. I'm going to see what sort of guest lineups that perhaps Dylan and I could put together here to engage in some more conversations here. Again, the intent and expectation behind a lot of this show is essentially to have a platform that Dylan and I, and even Music Man at times too, can kind of have a real talk about situations happening and interview those that are making positive impacts in life or can help us understand things that can make us better in the world. So again, Dylan, Frank, thanks for being here, guys. I appreciated the conversation. You know I love both of you guys with 1.5 million hearts. So you guys stay awesome.
Love you guys.
You guys as well. I will catch you guys later. I am going to vibe off into the Dudeverse. So I will catch you dudes later.
See ya. All right. So yeah, so that was our conversation with Dylan the Dude and nima74, or you also may know him as Frank. So tons of love and appreciation to both of those guys here. Obviously, Dylan and I co-run Level Up for Charity, and it really kind of tails in line to kind of what I said earlier, that a lot of why we brought Level Up for Charity together is, while on one end we are investing into the community and who we are as people and making the world in one way or another a better place, but also on top of it here, we're just friends that are willing to engage in these difficult discussions. And don't be afraid to, actually is a better way I should say it. Don't be afraid to talk to people about these situations. Don't be afraid to have these conversations. They educate you, you learn about perspectives, and you're willing to listen. So I'm going to wrap that there. So for whenever I do this highlight, it'll be good. If you guys have people that you think that we should interview on the show, or talk to, or be a part of this conversation here, please feel free to DM them to me, mention them in our feedback channel, ! Discord. I'll post that real quick. Don't be afraid to join that. That way we get the chance to maybe get to meet some new people and interact with some of those that can make some really cool content for us in the future and stuff like this. So, all right. Now we are done.